Travis still in here? Did he see outside?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Before we had a chance to say that.
Yeah.
Travis, I just want to say thanks before you step down. We appreciate it. And clearly, when you go through the list of accomplishments, those are things that often aren't heard. And we're glad you did that. And we appreciate your efforts in there.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next recognition, the Board of Education will recognize Amy Livengood, language arts teacher at Clint Rosette, for being declared a national board certified teacher. Amy has met the high and rigorous standards for what accomplished teachers should know and be able to do, and has successfully completed the national assessment certifying teachers who have met these standards. Amy? Yep.
You mind if I, sorry. So Amy gets a little gun shy in front of crowds, so I just want to, I'm delighted to say this. Just a little bit.
How can that be when you spend
That's right.
time with
That's
7th
right.
and 8th graders?
Yeah, that's true. So I'm delighted to be here with Amy. You know, when she first talked about becoming or exploring national board certification, you know, it was rather new to me as well, as far as what the requirements were and everything. And what I didn't realize, and I do now through Amy, is the sheer amount of work that goes into it, and the really rigorous requirements of teachers. So I worked with Amy a little bit to just have a few stats for you today. Normally, when you apply for national board certification, it's expected to take around three years. Amy did it in one. It says a lot about her. 3% of all teachers are national board certified, which again speaks to Amy. When you first apply, the amount of teachers that basically pass the assessments and the between 200 and 400 hours of work that it takes, again, in 1 year, on her own time, about 40% of teachers make it on the first try, and only 65% who even apply make it overall. So it's a testament to what we at Rosette really already know is she's really a master teacher, and I'm thrilled to be here with her tonight.
Next, you're going to tell us she's in the madrigal still?
No offense, Amy, but you don't want her to sing, I don't think. All right.
Well, Amy, we have a little certificate. We do appreciate your efforts. Thank you very much for all you do.
Congratulations, Amy.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
My wife went through this. What you did is amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you.
Well, again, congratulations, Amy. Next, acceptance of gifts and donations. Now, Vicki, I'm probably going to mess up the way this is to be read, but we'll start with the big part first. The Board of Education will accept with gratitude grants from the DeKalb County Community Foundation and the Farney R. Wurlitzer Foundation in the amount of $19,500, and a donation from Music Boosters in the amount of $3,000 for a grand concert harp and the renovation of 2 Steinway upright pianos at DeKalb High School. The donation of $500 from Kelly Williamson's Exxon Mobil station at 2400 Sycamore Road, DeKalb, to DeKalb High School, and the donation of $2,000 each to Clint Rosette and Huntley Middle Schools from General Mills and the National Dairy Council to purchase food service equipment. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Discussion. I think we're ready. Roll call, Vicki.
Colin Barnes,
Yes.
Nina Fontana,
Yes.
Vicki Herring Favor,
Yes.
Mary Hess,
Yes.
Tom Tia,
Yes.
Victoria Newport,
Yes.
Tracy Williams.
Yes. First, I'd like to see, is Anita here today? Miss Anita?
What, Jane Ovens, this one.
Yeah, she's looking right at it. Anita Zerbrugg from the DeKalb County Community Foundation and Jane Ovix from the Farney R. Wurlitzer Foundation we'd like to thank both of you very, very much. Very much. And then do we have some representatives from Exxon this evening? No? Okay, well, and thanks to General Mills and the National Dairy Council, the Fuel Up Grant Program was offered in July of 2014. Carol Warren applied for 4 grants on October 8th. The announcements were made to the winners. Both Huntley Middle School and Clinton Rosette were chosen as grant recipients, both receiving a $2,000 per school grant for purchasing of equipment through General Mills. The driving force behind these grants were to give school districts the ability to increase breakfast participation. Excuse me. We used these merchandising items to enhance a portable breakfast that was located in the front entrance of Huntley Middle School. Our goal was to capture students standing outside visiting with fellow students, with high hopes of enticing them to eat breakfast outside while visiting with fellow students prior to the first bell ringing. This offers an additional outside cart, would complement the inside breakfast offering and service line. So we even have the equivalent of a drive-through now. So well done, Carol. Well, thank you all. Please.
I just want to thank Anita and Jane. I know the number of large grants of this size. There are not that many of those from the Community Foundation. And so I just really thank what you're doing for our students and the long-lasting impact that this gives with that. I just think it's tremendous. Thank you both for working together.
All right, next public comment. Vicki, anything from cards? No. Board committee reports and correspondence. Anyone? All right, enterprise zone update. This is Paul Warwick. It was initially supposed to be an action item, but it looks like we may need to defer this till the next meeting, so I won't ask for a motion at this time. Paul?
Thank you. Good evening. On behalf of DeKalb County government and the DeKalb County Economic Development Corporation, I'll briefly describe an overview of the enterprise zone program and the enterprise zone application and the contents of and the provisions of the application and how it affects the school district. And basically, next slide. We'll talk only briefly touch upon the purpose, the Illinois State Board of Ed School Aid formula, the school district's proposed IGA and the relationship between that and the required enterprise zone documents, including the enterprise zone participation resolution, which is required of the district and other participating taxing bodies. We'll talk about the role of the enterprise zone administrator, the enterprise zone memorandum of understandings that will be entered into with the companies that are investing and building in the county and the responsibilities associated therein. And also we'll talk about abatement performance monitoring, the creation of an enterprise zone advisory board, and also review the status of the municipal taxing body approvals and touch on the economic impact of the program and the project. Next slide, please. Of course, the enterprise zone purpose is to accelerate commercial and industrial development, expand the tax base, create jobs, increase income and wages, and increase long-term tax revenue for the district and all the taxing bodies. Next slide. The school aid formula is set up to compensate school districts fully for enterprise zone tax abatements. While staff at the Illinois State Board of Education have been in transition, we have confirmed that the goal is indeed to fully compensate the district for the cost of an abatement, either an enterprise zone abatement or general abatements. I won't go through the calculation in detail, but we have made provisions for some detailed conference call with staff, and also some calculation sheets were forwarded last week. For the DeKalb County is a tax cap district, and for tax cap districts, the State Board of Ed uses the lower of two amounts in their calculation, either the real EAV or the tax cap EAV. If the tax cap, they use the lower of the two amounts. If the tax cap EAV is lower, they use that amount. If the real EAV is lower, they use the real EAV. However, if the tax cap EAV is lower than real EAV, after the real EAV has already been reduced to account for abatements and other things, there should be no loss to the district because the tax cap EAV is a better deal using a lower amount than the real EAV in the calculations. Since the tax cap EAV, or the PTEL EAV as they refer to it, is lower than the real EAV, after these adjustments are made, it appears then that the PTEL EAV is a better deal and there's no need for further adjustments. So again, we had understood previously that full compensation would be provided when real EAV is used, and there was some question about if the tax cap is lower, but according to discussions with Jason Hall, acting division administrator for funding and forecasting, the district should be made whole prior to proration under either scenario. And again, we'll further confirm that with some live discussions and review of the worksheet. Next slide, please. The draft intergovernmental agreement that was prepared by the school board and the district's attorneys was very helpful. It was used as a model for the enterprise zone documents. As it turns out, the required documents include designating ordinances required of the designating units, the county and the municipalities, and also an intergovernmental agreement among the designating units, those counties and the municipalities, as well as participation resolutions from the taxing bodies. So that's why we learned that we have to follow the requirements of the Enterprise Zone Act and its applications, and consequently, most, if not all, the provisions of the district's proposed IGA are included, if not in this resolution, in the intergovernmental agreement among municipalities. And we've shared that with staff and attorneys to identify where the interests of the school district are covered. Next slide, please. The enterprise participation resolution that we request the district to consider and approve includes, of course, the interstate competition market, describing including the area within 3.5 miles of I-88. Most of the enterprise zone properties are within the interstate competition market, and this area provides for a 10-year tax abatement schedule, differentiating slightly between knowledge-based industrial manufacturing and logistics or warehousing and distribution industries, providing a stronger benefit to knowledge and manufacturing followed by logistics. The resolution includes the employment requirements, the wage minimums and averages, and includes provisions for non-performance and enforcement of those provisions. Next slide, please. The role of the enterprise zone administrator is key. It is contemplated or proposed that the DCEDC executive director serve as the enterprise zone administrator. We do this kind of work right now, and it was logical to interface between the county and the municipalities and the taxing bodies. The responsibilities including administering and enforcing the ordinance, managing the zone, maintaining records, preparing the required reports of the state, serving as an advisor and staff to an enterprise zone advisory board, which I'll describe in a minute, initiating and enforcing the property tax memorandum of understanding between the enterprise zone and the company applying for benefits under the program, monitoring the performance of those companies under the memorandum of understanding, including job creation, wages, investments, enforcing clawbacks if necessary, if job creation doesn't meet the prescribed limits or if construction doesn't meet the required amounts, and maintaining records of construction, invoices, machinery, and equipment that are required for many of the state benefits, including the sales tax exemption on construction materials. Next slide, please. While not required by the state act, we propose that an enterprise zone advisory board be created to guide and support and establish procedures for operation and management and communications associated with the enterprise zone advisory board, setting up goals and objectives, establishing procedures for appeals, operation and management, administration and enforcement, working with the enterprise zone administrator and reviewing the work of the administrator in guiding the zone. It also requires the preparation and distribution of annual reports. It requires that the administrator market the enterprise zone effectively to business and industry and prospects, and collecting the data required by the State Department of Commerce and also the Department of Revenue. The membership, as proposed, would include the DeKalb County Economic Development Corporation Executive Committee, plus representatives of designating units or participating taxing bodies that may not already be on that committee. And this would include the DeKalb School District. Next slide, please. All of the participants in the current intergovernmental agreement are in the process of considering or have approved participation resolutions in the enterprise zone. DeKalb Public Library District has approved theirs, and DeKalb County has approved, and we have consideration by the Sanitary District, City of DeKalb, Kishwaukee College, Township, and the Park District scheduled later this month.
Do you anticipate any of those groups not passing this?
No, I don't. Cooperation has been very good. There are tweaks here and there. We have some language that you're proposing that we'll be discussing. So there are things like that occurring. Municipal attorneys are looking at things and identifying improvements.
Well, what percent of the enterprise zone is in District 428?
The enterprise zone as proposed is 13 square miles. The city of DeKalb encompasses 8 square miles. And the city of DeKalb will include most, if not all, of the school district property. So that would be 65, 70% of the zone.
Well, I noticed in the municipal taxing bodies doing approval, it just focuses on the ones within primarily the city of DeKalb.
Oh, good point.
Where are we at with the other districts?
I'm happy to share that. For this presentation, I presented the DeKalb district, but the city of Genoa has approved theirs. The Genoa Kingston School District is awaiting some language improvements, but they're ready to approve theirs. Cortland is very favorable, and again, they too are waiting for documentation. Waterman is favorable. The Indian Creek School District has approved their participation resolution. Sandwich is favorable, and they're asking for a resolution to approve as well. So we anticipate good. Oh, Sycamore. Sycamore is again awaiting some language that the municipalities are talking about, so they'll approve it at their next meeting, and some of the Sycamore taxing bodies are supportive of it. We have some information, further information to secure and address for the Sycamore School District.
Will all 13 miles of the enterprise zone be on 10-year abatement, or would there be a split abatement based on the size of the potential projects coming?
The 10-year abatement is provided for only within the 3.5-mile distance adjacent to 88. The program, our enterprise zone program calls for a 5-year countywide abatement with a 5-year bonus in this interstate competition market where we see stronger competition and need a 10-year program to compete And again, we're grateful for the school district for taking the lead and pointing out how it would be advantageous to be more aggressive and more successful in capturing tax base and jobs.
Well, thank you, Paul. We appreciate it. Everybody can feel comfortable knowing we're not going to hand out a quiz on EAVs and DeKalb EAVs. Because you're not expected to understand that fully. But Gino, if you would, please.
I'll be real brief. I asked Cindy to put up the map just because there's a question about how large the area is.
Yes.
So we asked Paul to prepare this. The line, if you could just slide that map up a little bit so we can see the bottom line too. The tan lines there are the 3.5 mile, area with the 10-year abatements. So when you look at everything in color, I believe it's commercial, industrial land that's available, that's not developed yet. It's in, that's going to be in the enterprise zone. The enterprise zone boundary is, I'm not sure if I can distinguish that out there. The green is the school district, correct?
Yeah.
And so the green is a school district boundary. Everything in color you see there is going to be in the enterprise zone. So quite a bit of it is in this school district boundary. And most of that, I would say, is in that 10-year interstate competition area. I can never seem to memorize that word correctly, but that's how it plays out. That's in your packet. Make sure and then put it in there for you. But just to be brief, I have a very short PowerPoint. I didn't want to recap too much what I was anticipating Paul to run through. So I'll be around, so it'll be less than 5 minutes. So don't take up too much of your time.
So just with that map, it goes from Mark Green Road down to Erie Road. That's the 3.5 miles.
I don't know the road names that well. That's why I asked for the map.
But you said it's the brown line?
Yes, this is the brown line.
So,
right
okay.
after it.
So it's bearing 12, or Mark Green.
Yeah, okay. So, as we spoke last time, what we plan on bringing in is a revised resolution. We were provided a resolution from Paul about a little over 2 weeks ago. And we were provided the materials for this packet on Tuesday. So we're going to, after we receive those, we want to prepare this resolution. And bringing it all in today would have been, I think, too much of a rush for everybody. That we can digest, have any questions you have to Paul today, and we can bring this in the next time around. There are some changes we want to implement, just to keep big picture here. Their initial resolution that came in asked us to commit to 15 years, meaning abatements could be given in 15 years. And then from the date they're given, once the building's constructed, which could be a year or two lag, obviously, once you give the abatement, they could run for 10 years thereafter, based on the area within 3.5 miles of the interstate. So we felt uncomfortable not having a crystal ball and looking that far ahead. We're all working in good faith and intergovernmental cooperation. There were some terms in there that we just weren't comfortable with, and we said a lot of risk comes off the table if we can all just agree that the resolution we pass is really a 5-year term, meaning abatements given in that 5-year period will have abatements that could run out 10 years. So if you give an abatement, actually not you, would be the administrator, grants an abatement based on this resolution near the end of that 5th year, you'd likely have 1, maybe up to 3 years for construction planning to get the building up and running. You'd probably have another year before taxes come through, and there'd be 10 years of abatements thereafter. So it still goes out for a pretty long period of abatement. The idea is this 5-year period would be the initial, and then thereafter, if everything's going well, you guys could decide to pass another resolution, or if you're not here, the next board, pass another resolution extending it again. The enterprise zone will have a much longer life than just that 5-year period. So that's what we've been discussing so far, and you'll see that in your resolution when it comes forward. That, in essence, is what's covered in large on this first slide. There'll be conditions in that resolution. Since we're not going to be parties to those ordinances that designate and create that Paul went through, we're not part of those designating organizations, those are cities. We're not part of the intergovernmental agreement that gets passed. We're only passing our resolution. We're going to put our conditions, and many of them are in there now, right in that resolution that we passed. So it's clear the duration of time and how those conditions work. One of the things we were discussing early on before we went to this 5-year concept was wages. The company comes in 15 years from now, the wages identified in their designated ordinance might seem low to us. So by limiting it to this 5-year period, kind of takes a lot of it off the table for us. There'll be some reporting requirements. They've outlined it in their documents internally. We'll look at that and kind of walk through that with Paul in the next few days here to make sure it all is succinct with what you'd like to see happen. I put this on page 3, which is, and Paul touched on this, there's employment and wage requirements that they're going to require. That'll be really the discretion of the administrator, whether they enforce that and how they enforce that given the circumstances. Now, they'll likely bring that to the advisory committee that you'll be a part of, but that's advisory. You're not going to be able to really require them to do anything. But by having a 5-year agreement again, hopefully your voice will mean something, because if you're not happy, you may not extend it out thereafter. Now, and I just want to be clear on that, which is the 5-year period is the date by which they can grant abatements, grant abatement agreements, but your abatements will last beyond that 5-year period. Obviously, if the company relies on that, they're going to have those for that 10-year period that the abatements are granted. Okay. And again, page 4, I mean, I'm not going to run through these again. You'll have, by next meeting, a resolution and an executive summary that just walks you through some critical points if you want to read the whole resolution. But these are some of the points that we've talked about it. One of the language items we'll want to put in the resolution that Andrew had asked for is that if for some reason the GSA formula changes based on currently how they give you credit to make up for the dollars that you have in an abatement, if it changes for the worse, then the question is, we're going to add into the resolution the ability to notify them that based on that change, we no longer want them granting abatements even if it's in that 5-year period. There may not be a change, but there's language out there with the state, but if they change the formula so that you no longer are in essence made whole, I should say made whole less the proportionate discount that you're being shorted, then you should have the ability to say, well, this negatively impacts me differently now, and I've got to rethink what we're doing. I added the schedules on the last page, just to be succinct and clear. The interstate competition market area, and what's outside of it is still the 5-year period. And I totaled these up before coming in, and I didn't write them down, but you can total them up and you can see, okay, if your knowledge area totals up to like 460 or 440% or something like that, in essence over a 10-year period. And it's interesting, you see it, they are, obviously you're giving more to a knowledge versus an industrial versus a logistics. And that makes a lot of sense for obvious reasons. Does anybody have any questions of me? Or Paul, for that matter?
Well, thanks, Gino.
Thank you.
For what it's worth, there has been an awful lot of time spent on this and getting a resolution to a spot, Paul, where the district can get squarely behind it and bolster any opportunities to bring economic development to the area. But we still needed a bit of a trump card, if you will, that said if the wheels come off in Springfield, which we have to allow for, we would have the ability as a district to address that appropriately in the best interest of the district. So that's what's led to this resolution that we're currently proposing. And I think it gets everybody to where they need to be. Hopefully you'll find it that way.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next, the technology update, Kelly Hamilton. Oh, before we do, I'm so sorry, Kelly. Do we have a consensus then bring us back for action on the 16th as long as we meet these schedules for? Okay, we'll see you on the 16th.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Paul. All right, I'm sorry, Kelly. Forgot that.
Sure, I just wanted to give you a brief glimpse inside of a 8th grade classroom where Sean Plant is using technology to differentiate instruction, and he's doing a fantastic job. I'm going to show you where the video is posted, and I'm going to show you a couple of clips from the video. It's only 7 minutes long though, so feel free to check out the full video. Sean was very proud. So we have Denise has been working on this one-to-one, and I think Brian Tobin has been working on this one-to-one website. And it's under middle school highlights. Now we'll see if the volume's working.
here on Khan Academy, and I am in my main page, and I've got all my students here. I've got algebra. I also have my pre-algebra, and I've got my later on pre-algebra class down below. What I like about Khan Academy is that it gives me the opportunity to look at what students are doing in class. So in this case, I basically just a quick run through what Khan here, and it'll give me, for algebra here, it'll give me all the skills that they have practiced in Algebra 1. Currently, we just got done with graphing and analyzing linear functions. So one of the key concepts in this was graphing linear equations. And here I can see that students 18, 11, 32, 35, 36, 5, 2, 1, 13, 17, 31, these students are all struggling with this skill for one reason or another. So what this gives me the opportunity to do is to pull them into a group. I'm just going to recommend that these students, again, also distribution. So it's something that we may have done at the beginning of the year, and then we learned about it. Is when we got the Q.
Wasn't doing that before.
So that's all I'm going to show you. But feel free to check it out. Tom's doing some amazing things differentiating instruction.
Awesome.
Questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
All right.
Just so you know, Kelly, I actually watched the whole 7 minutes of that. But I was impressed. I mean, the ability to sort through the kids, and now we have the time to address as he did in that small group, those that might be struggling. In the meantime, others can look forward faster, if you will.
Yeah, and one of the
It seems like it's working the way we had hoped
right.
it would.
And he really highlights that, how he can push. Some of the kids are working ahead. And then I also like some of the video clip. You do see kids with pencil and paper next to their computer, which I think is nice. I mean, they still want to see it on paper, but they're using the technology too.
Well, that was good to see. That was really. All right, next, the Kindergarten Individual Development Survey, Paula Mo. And thank you, Kelly. Thanks for bringing that.
Hi there. I am here just to share some information about something that the Illinois State Board of Education is going to require of our kindergartners starting in the fall. It's called the Kindergarten Individual Development Survey. I actually have a copy for each of you of what the actual assessment survey looks like. This is per kindergarten child. And I do have one kindergarten teacher in the audience today. I have Tracy Pizzona, who is actually running one of our pilots right now. So I just want to share a little bit of information. You can go ahead and continue. So the training that I attended recently kind of started off with what KIDS is and where it came from. And so it was developed in response to a report called A New Beginning from a Kindergarten Readiness Assessment Committee to the State Board in April of 2011. So it's been kind of coming down the pipeline, but we haven't really heard as much about it until now. The full report can be found, and I know you have this presentation if you choose to read it. But it's really a new observation-based assessment aimed at trying to enhance our understanding of children's ability during their first years of school, how to intervene, the process in which we understand their readiness skills and their ability to move forward. This is the administrative code, again, that says that each school district offering a kindergarten program will begin giving the survey annually starting the 2015-16 school year. And when it talks about funding, it specifically says we are not obligated to administer in any school year in which the state does not provide funding sufficient for the cost of the test administration and the establishment of professional development. However, the test itself does not cost anything, And the training for the teachers does not cost anything. But they must go to a free 2-day training. The training itself is free, but they get a $15 stipend. So for those 2 days, that money wouldn't actually pay for us to have subs for those 2 days. So it's sort of free. So the features of this assessment are that it is an individual child assessment. And so the packet that you're holding right now is full of all of the things that we would assess each child, each kindergartner on. Each kindergarten teacher completes this on all 28 of their students, and it is really an observation-based assessment. So it isn't the kids sitting down and taking a test. It is this kindergarten teacher really observing many, many, many times throughout the day what the students are doing in math, reading, but also social, dramatic play, self-care, safety, health, science. So there is a developmental sequence of their behaviors along a continuum. And as you look through that, you will see that there are kind of 6 ranges along a continuum that you would assess where a child falls in 11 different areas. The 11 domains are this. So it goes from self-regulation, such as how they manage their control of behaviors, to social and emotional development, down to history, social science, visual performing arts, physical health. They're really, if you look at each of those domains, the number of measures within each domain is listed next to it. So a teacher is documenting evidence and rating on between 47 and 56 different measures, because if you teach students who are in an ELL classroom, you have an additional 8 measures. This is completed then 3 times throughout the school year. The first assessment was within 40 days of attendance for student enrollment. So whenever your school date is, 40 days thereafter. And Tracy, was there like a 10-day window in which to
do it
enter?
5 days ahead of time and 5 days after that. It had to be
within that 10 days of the 40. The second assessment then is within 105 days, and then there's a third time that you are entering scores 170 days. However, those are the times that you're actually entering in the data. The teachers are recording observations and gathering evidence on an ongoing basis on all 28 of their students in order to be able to enter the data. So we have 11 teachers that are piloting. They were trained last summer, Tracy, I believe, voluntarily. They knew that this was coming, and they wanted to get as much information as they could. And those teachers have been reporting back now since the 40 days, just kind of the amount of time, the process, what it's going through. I know Tracy has kind of developed a system of trying to document evidence that she's shared. The reports that I've heard said that once the data was collected, it took teachers about 15 to 30 minutes per child to enter data online. So that's 6 to 14 hours, depending on how long it takes you for your class of students.
Or 30 hours a year, right?
Yes, 3 times.
So 30 hours, so that's almost the entire work week.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're documenting their evidence before school, after school, during their plan time. Because in order for them to fill in on the computer where the child falls within each of those domains on that continuum, is it 3 examples of evidence?
You have to have at least 3 observations from 3 different time periods in 3 different settings on each measure.
Per measure.
So it could be like you need to assess maybe self-regulation, and so you could do it in the hallway, you could do it in PE class, you could do it in reading group, but it has to be 3 different times in 3 different settings.
So piece of cake.
So that's what our teachers are doing in addition to then entering it. So the steps for our district would be that our remaining kindergarten teachers would need to attend this 2-day training. And then really as a district, we're going to need to determine what kindergarten in our district is going to look like. Because in the past, we have increased the rigor of academic responsibilities. We have removed some of that more dramatic social playtime. Some of our kindergarten classes with kitchens and play toys have now been replaced with more academic learning manipulatives. However, if you look at the different measures, there are many opportunities in which teachers need to rate students on that playtime. And so our kindergarten teachers want to just know what is the direction that our district will take and what kindergarten really looks like if we're to follow the Common Core and do this kids assessment. The kids' assessment says that it focuses more on the whole child instead of just that academic component. So, and I think that's my last slide. So that's kind of where we're at right now. It was really my point to come tonight and let you know what's coming, to just kind of share what our kindergarten students are, being looked at to do, but also to share what kind of time commitment that will take from our teachers.
I was just wondering if that could be addressed. How much additional time the kindergarten teachers are putting in above and beyond what they have usually
And that's what I was
done.
saying when I said before school, after school, during the plan time.
But-
I mean, Tracy, for example, how much time are you spending in a week?
I went back and looked, and honestly, by the 40-day measure, I spent 30 hours outside of class. And so even if you're taking a checklist, a rating or something like that, then you have to go transfer it somehow because you can't, otherwise you're flipping through papers when you're doing it. So it was 30 hours outside of class time at least. And then you're giving up plan times because you have to go observing in PE because there's a whole physical development thing, or you're running out to recess with them or sitting in lunch to go ahead and do that to make some of those observations.
And there are many, valuable, no one would say that anything that this assessment is asking us isn't a valuable idea of how a child develops. I think we just need to be very cognizant as we move forward of how we plan to handle that time, as well as the information then that we're given from that assessment and how worthy that is of how then they use their plan time to plan for that.
Does this have any discernible link at all to anything that's going on with Common Core, or is this some arbitrary, what I'm going by that is some different way of measuring children different from what the Common Core requires?
You can line it up with the Common Core, and there are components definitely of the Common Core within this assessment. In the training that I was in, they were able to show us one document out of however many measures of how kind of the math lined up. There is a lot in the Common Core about speaking and listening. I mean, that is a piece of it as well. However, there is a lot more beyond that, and that's kind of what I mean about what will kindergarten look like. What will our focus look like? Because our teachers, yes, are trying very hard to implement the Common Core as well, and they're trying to see how those coincide.
Statement and a question.
Mhm.
First of all, I just slight calculation, doing this is a 61-page survey. Each teacher administering 3 times per year per student, correct?
Yeah.
That'll generate approximately 76,860 pages of data. That has to be input into a system, correct?
Right, because you took your documentation and then online is this continuum that you go and you enter in, correct?
My question is, what is the State Board of Education using this data for?
Well, when I went to my training, that question was asked. They said, for starters, that it would give us information about our kindergartners and their readiness skills and how we could differentiate to meet their needs on the developmental continuum. And then they also said that how could they start to look at where money should be allocated if they don't have data to show that it should be allocated there? In which case we all kind of said, are you trying to tell us that you're going to fund kindergarten more? Should we get this assessment? But that was not really what was shared.
This is just rhetorical, but this is just for our district, that's about information.
Right.
How does the state board possibly plan to,
Gather all the
they're overwhelmed right now. How do they plan to aggregate these data and draw some meaning from it and disseminate it out? Has that been discussed?
It would seem logical.
not in the training that I was in.
It would seem logical that if they're looking at funding kindergarten more, it would make sense to then fund the survey first.
Well, their claim would be that the survey doesn't cost anything and they're providing free professional.
Well, it doesn't cost them anything because they're not directly paying. Like
Well,
the
then they would say, you don't really have to copy this off particularly for each kid, but you do need to document your data in some capacity so that when you get on the computer, you can actually fill out, I believe it shows you what it looks like on the computer printout.
Well, and I'm sure that's all true,
So,
but when you look
And I'm
at
not arguing with you because believe me, I feel the exact way. I'm just sharing what.
well, when you look at the time, all these teachers are gonna have to spend, multiplied by the number of kids, without us receiving one dime from the state of Illinois to offset those costs. And the cost to us is significant because this is being taken away from instructional or other.
And I would
Time
rather they
that
spend their plan time.
We're already struggling to fund kindergarten here locally. I'm sorry, Tom, go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
and I would see it as, I mean, they say that the state doesn't fund it adequately. We wanted the administrator funded by the state adequately before, it wasn't even your slide 1 or slide 2.
That's what.
So my interpretation is we're not being funded adequately, so we don't have to administer this program.
Well, ultimately, I'm sure this is a court case.
I'm sure.
And until
They're-
that's
they're
decided, I
talking to
don't know
their
that we
lawyers
need to
now.
participate, frankly.
I would agree.
Tom?
Doug, I know you attend the Luda conference.
Yes.
What's the perspective from other large districts?
Um,
The same thing.
As you know, Luda's 57 school districts that educate over half the students in the state of Illinois. Every single superintendent is appalled by this. They've talked about how they're going to lose their kindergarten teachers if they cannot transfer to other grade levels in the elementary schools within the district. They're probably going to leave the district. It's such an overwhelming burden on the kindergarten teachers. So Luda's position, I just forwarded, by the way, Diane Rutledge, the executive director's comments, and the fall conference is coming up March 5th and 6th. Chris Cook, the state superintendent of schools, is going to be there, and I've actually got time scheduled to meet with him.
What is the penalty if we do not participate? We just say,
We have no idea. And that was my question to Diane Rutledge.
We have no idea.
We don't know. They didn't have an answer for that because that was
the
asked.
Luda should make a statement.
Luda is going to take a position on it.
Good.
And I think that it's not fair to our teachers. It's not fair to our kids. I'm not saying this is not a bad thing. Yeah, it's great, but we don't have the resources to do this. It's not fair to
And they
the people that are
can't.
doing this.
And they can't go through the data. That's what irritates me about it. I mean, if it is 78,000 pages, how could they ever
That's
assess
just
the data in a
rubbish.
meaningful way?
What's next round? What's 105 days? What school year?
Yeah, the 40th day came at a really not opportune time in this conference time. And they were meeting with
Well, let's
28
just-
report cards.
Let's just throw out one more what if, and I'm not even suggesting this has even been thought of, but if someone were to go back to half-day kindergarten.
And there are a lot of districts that still do that.
Absolutely. And if that at some point made economic sense down the road in a few years, and those same teachers were now doubled down on their responsibilities for these kids, I don't even see how.
They'd be around 50,000.
Right, you get twice the work.
Yes. 56 minutes. Nina?
Well, I'm just going to say a comment again that I'm glad the statement says that the kids' assessment focuses more on the whole child because there certainly can't be much teaching going on. Seriously, which, I mean, I know our kindergarten teachers, they did an awesome job. And don't we tend to know how well they've been prepared one year when they get to the next year? And then those teachers talk to the teachers and say, what do we need to do? How can
And
we
there's
help?
discussion of this moving up to first grade, something like that.
Why stop there?
I just think you need to work within the Luda Association.
Oh, absolutely,
Try
absolutely.
to, as a group,
Yes.
make a statement, because
This will be, the conference is the 4th and 5th of February. I'll plan to be there. I'm going to be the first book on this, and it's uniform. There's already districts in the state. Those are in much better financial situations. They're saying, what are they going to do facetiously, what are they going to do pro-rate or general state aid? Oh, they're already doing that. So the reality is this, like a lot of initiatives, and again, I brought up the issue of kindergarten. I mean, almost school code says you have to get off of kindergarten in elementary school 5 days a week. Over 85% of the school districts in the state of Illinois are not doing that. And they've been penalized for that.
with the numbers that we heard tonight, I mean, can we generate a true financial cost to this district?
I think we'd have to include the costs of the out-of-school hours.
Oh, I understand, that's what I'm saying.
And the normal rate we calculate for teachers.
Because basically, it's an unfunded mandate. Again.
And it really would be more like changing working conditions for those teachers.
Exactly.
Right now, these are pilot teachers who chose to pilot. But
next year when it's.
Thanks for volunteering.
Happy you volunteered.
Okay, in the interest of full disclosure, I misread the email and I thought I was just getting more information. And I should have been found out I was
Speaking of the pilot, what do we want to do? I mean, it's supposed to be done 2 more times, and I want to lose Tracy too.
Are we committed to it for
I
the
did
year?
ask that question. I sent that question off to our rep, and that, yes, once you're in, they prefer that you continue. But it is-
Prefer.
It is, well, it's a pilot. You know, once you've committed, they expect that you're doing it. Because then I even asked, could we say 6 kids? Could they follow 6 kids? But correct me if I'm wrong, the measures that you're recording next time aren't necessarily the same measures that you just recorded, because you sometimes input different measures. So it's not even like she's always going to be looking necessarily at the same growth. At the end, you would look, but then that.
The measures for the 40-day and the 170th day are the same.
But not.
The measures for the 105th day are different.
A little bit different.
So after all this stuff's input in their magic system, are you getting any benefit from the information that are you learning anything?
I shouldn't say no benefit. One of the things, and I did bring a form if you want to look at, it's just like what we're using for data collection, but like we have to take language samples, and so we're writing down those things as kids are speaking and in different situations. So we're taking language samples and things like that. There are things you get. I mean, I think you start to think about things with different kids, but do we get anything back from them? Once that's inputted, I don't see it anymore. Like it's gone to the state, and I think there's a way I can pull up a report and see where my kids were marked there. But I mean, if you look at the descriptors, what you're doing is you're collecting all this evidence, this data, and then you sit down in front of the computer and you have to look at the examples and you have to look at your evidence, excuse me, and see where that fits in. And so then you end up getting like it's a developmental continuum rating of where they are, and then it's gone. And it's gone, you can pull it up, but then I don't know how helpful it would be to pull up measure by measure to look at that. So
Teachers actually reported that when push came to shove, sometimes they still felt like, I know I've documented, but still I'm kind of going by the gut here, in which case, is it truly a good representation? I don't know how you felt, but I have heard
on
that
about
from.
child 27, yeah.
Right, I mean, there's a lot there.
Tracy, what type of training was there to ensure inter-rater reliability between?
Well, we were there for 2 full days, and you watch a bunch of videos, and then you have to rate them, and everyone in the room then kind of talks about where the rating was, and they tell you. So they did do several examples of that. But I have to say, if you look at some of those examples and descriptors, they're odd. I mean, there's things like there for motor development about riding a tricycle. We don't have tricycles in kindergarten. We don't have tricycles in PE. And so you have to kind of adapt some of those things. You know, I'd go to PE and I'd be like, oh yeah, I think it's there, but you don't really mark it on that form. You mark it somewhere else, and then you have to go look at examples. So some of the time that I spent, in all honesty, was looking at what am I looking for when I go there, and kind of making myself a list of examples so I knew what kinds of data I'm supposed to be collecting.
I look forward to hearing what is resulted of this conference, but I mean, to Mary's point, the work that you guys spent, I think, is fantastic because it really helps us get an understanding and make a more informed decision. I don't see the necessity of continuing going down the pilot path at this point, and then spending this much time doing this. I think we're all.
How many teachers?
11.
11?
Which is approximately.
Well,
About half.
at $15 a day, that's what, $330 we could refund the state there.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, honestly, if you want to get.
So then they're not out any money?
Yeah,
No harm, no foul.
Exactly. So, I think this would warrant some more discussion as to how best to address this potential issue. And I'm sorry, the date that the next round is due starts in January?
What are they?
5, so it'd be January,
January.
February, and January.
All right, so we have the January meeting to address this prior to the next round being due. So let's take a little time to formulate.
The intent would be that we would need to schedule training. I mean, I'm looking now at when I would need to schedule training for the rest of our kindergarten teachers this spring. We would need to go, so, you know. just
So are you saying the January meeting isn't timely enough?
No, I'm just saying we need to consider, should I be not getting ready to send them to be trained right now? Should I be trying to push that training back? I would prefer to push it back as late as spring as possible because they'll be going through conferences again and everything else. So, you know, that's what I'll try to do. Push it
And do
back.
you need an answer from us tonight?
No.
Okay. Yeah, do that. Push it off as late as possible.
And I think we'll let Tracy go because she's got lots of things to figure out. So, thank you very much, Tracy, for coming.
Thank you.
I'm up next.
Yeah,
I believe.
math update.
So this is in response to some of the questions about the finances at the last meeting when I presented. So I just kind of want to recap what the cost was, what some of the concerns were, and what I found out when I did speak with that rep again. So it was a 5-year quote that we were given for the mind map materials that we're looking to purchase for our K-5 teachers to teach students in math next year. So the grand total here for the 5 years was $321,000, and that included a one-time shipping fee. Go ahead. When we compared that to what we currently would be spending in those 5 years on just the everyday math journals alone, it's very similar in price. That 5-year everyday math would be $321. The mind map is $321. So the concern was the $321,000 upfront, which I understand that money would be not spread out then, as we would be just if we were buying the math journals each year. So I spoke with the publisher, and the McGraw-Hill publisher also publishes everyday math. And so we were just talking about over the next 5 years, those workbooks alone, just for everyday math, would cost us at least $380,000 a year, and we would still pay that shipping every year. With that 5-year mind math quote, we pay it one time. So we really kind of narrowed it down to 2 options. Actually 3. The first option is we could pay for mind math 1 year at a time. We don't have to buy it as a 5-year. However, the prices do continue to go up. They've even gone up since our last quote. Our quote is locked in until December 31st. And he estimated that over 5 years, that would probably cost an additional $300,000 more than if we just paid it up front. The other option then was, could we spread it out? And the option was 50-50. Could we pay 50% of it in January so that we can get it ordered and start training our teachers? And the other 50% at the beginning of the new fiscal year, July 1st. They needed a formal request from our district in writing. Our business office submitted that formal request on November 20th. We weren't certain if they would charge us interest or if it would be approved. We did get the approval on the 26th. As the terms state below, they would not be charging us interest, correct, Cindy? Right. And so as a part of our approved extended payment terms, we would pay $160,595, which is 50% of the total upon receipt of the order, which we would need to order before December 31st. And then the remainder no later than August 30th, 2015. And then talking with, and Cindy and Andrew, jump in whenever because you are the budget people. In talking about budgeting, and I don't know, Andrea, if you want to explain the budgeting over a 5-year period, what that would look like.
Well, actually, it's how we record it on our books. So we would list it as a prepaid expense, and then as the years go on, we're purchasing it every year, it gets expense. The cash is out of our balance sheet, so that's gone. But as far as an expense, then it's reflected as such as listed on here. So, and that has been verified by our auditors that we can report it that way, and that's what we would recommend.
That's GAAP, isn't it?
So I hope that gives you the information you were.
My math, is that the recommendation? Is that a better program? Is it better
Yes.
That's the bottom line. We've been talking about money, but my
Right,
math is a
there-
lot better than everyday math. I
Right,
see
the
that's not-
proposal that I presented last time was showing the process that we had gone through.
Yes.
I'm sorry, the process that we had gone
Sorry.
through and the amount of time the committee had spent on using a rubric to analyze it. So the committee and teachers all have had an opportunity to look at it as well. That is the recommendation.
So, are you recommending then, Andrea, that we do it over 2 payments?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a consensus then to bring this back under that scenario, the 2 payment method with, forward, pulling the expenses forward, so to speak?
Right.
And our prepaid expense as she's designed it here. Everyone okay with that? All right, the next meeting we can put that on as an action item.
Thank you.
And actually, Tom, this, what they were addressing is, during that presentation, there was some questions about, yeah, it's all shelled out in 1 year. It makes that year look bad, every other year it's better, it's more efficient, but, so thank you for the follow-up.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, non-business consent agenda. It's been recommended that the Board of Education approve the non-business consent agenda items A through C. Do I have a motion? Second? Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, Vicki?
Nina Fontana?
Yes.
Vicky Hernan Faber? Mary Hess?
Yes.
Tom Tia?
Yes.
Victoria Newport?
Yes.
Casey Williams?
Yes.
Colin Barth?
Yes.
New business and administration request for additional 0.5 early childhood special education teacher. Dr. Welch, this information.
Oh, well, thanks for hanging in there tonight. Our numbers are getting better in the early childhood program due to some students that are now eligible for special education services. Students 0 to 4 years old are not educated through the school district. They're educated if they are qualifying for service through early intervention. So once they hit 3 years old is when they become our responsibility as a school district. That's why we have an early childhood program. Our teeny tiny bars. Right now, all of our sections are full, and we have 4 students in the pipeline. So meaning they've had domain meetings where they will qualify for special ed services based on their needs. And legally, we do have recommendations on what those class size caps are because they are special education classrooms. We've always been very conservative in our approach to staffing these programs, meaning while we know students, EI Services does a good job of telling us students that are 2.5 to 3 years old, we as a school district, as well as other school districts, wait until they turn 3 years old, as well as go through our formal special ed identification process before we really request new staff. We want to make sure that, our assessments kind of warrant what the recommendations in the past have been. So I would recommend that at the next board meeting, this be an action item for a 0.5 special education teacher. If you hadn't had the opportunity to visit the program, I would love to take you there as well. The little teeny tiny bars are very cute.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mary?
You said there's recommendations for class size?
Yes, I am saying that nicely. There's recommendations for that. It's just not something you want to get your hands set on. If there is a special ed audit, as well as I would say in my professional opinion, those are warranted. What they recommend would be 5 special ed students, 3 to 5 years old with 1 teacher, but conservatively, this district as well as other districts go to 10 students because they added teaching assistants. So when we do that, you can go up to 10 students, and that's what our district has done. And I would recommend that approach. The only times we go down to those sizes of 5 to 8 students is when we have students that are in a very specialized program that are very involved, perhaps. We would make a recommendation to do that. But at this time, we've been capping at 10. I think that's inappropriate.
And I'm just curious, is this the same 89% prorated reimbursement for this program, or is there a different formula for that?
When you're talking, what are you talking about?
The
How do
money we get from
fund
the
it?
state. Yeah.
Oh, the grant, well, we do get IDEA grant funding, if that's what you're talking
Okay.
about, for the district, and how the federal funding is determined, how much we get, is by how many students we have. There has been talk about changing that to also looking at student need, but that has been going on for 5 to 6 years. A lot of districts are in support of that. So hopefully down the road it would go to that too. So yes, we do get some funding for that, but the other part of that is the district has to show maintenance of effort, meaning the district cannot use only federal funding to fund their specialized programs. We have to show as a district that we're maintaining the effort, that we are putting money into those programs as well. So we do that in this district. I do say I advise districts to use the IDEA grants funding more for curriculum and not for staff necessarily, because when you do that, you end up paying more for the staff because they don't pay for TRS and things like that because it's federal money. So generally districts advise against doing that. We try not to do that. Sometimes we do that, but so far we haven't done that. We put more classified staff into the grants just because that hit is not as hard.
Certified staff, TRS, TRS, what is it this year?
We over 30%.
It was 40 point something percent last year.
Yeah. So they give you money and they charge you an additional 30% TRS if you pay for a teacher out of the grant, out of the federal.
So we can pay for assistants out of there, we don't pay that.
And this is kind of a loaded question.
Okay.
And I mean, I really don't expect an answer tonight, but maybe we can meet personally. Is there any benefit to us doing Head Start? I mean, financial benefit or?
Head Start meaning,
So we do early childhood and pre-K.
pre-K, right?
Head Start is funded as well. Is it a better funding than what we're getting from?
It's a different coffer. I mean, it's not a public school. So pre-K is the at-risk, grant-driven program. And then EC, special education, comes out of federal special education funds. And then you have Head Start, which is funded, it's not you typically part of a public school program. We do refer to Head Start, and they need 10% special education to meet their quotas. So they do depend on us to go over there and do screenings and such, and our staff go over there and do that. But we run collaboratively. So I mean, I'd have to look into it more, but they are really separate from a public school program.
All right, Mary, you do bring up one point I could say, that down the road, perhaps it would be thoughtful, since we are such a big district, to really look at our EC and special ed programs in this way. We are the biggest district around here. Perhaps we could entice other school districts that are small and don't have the resources to tuition in students to our programs. That could be down the road something that we look at, and we could, as a district, say that that's okay. I have done it before. We set up guidelines with the finance, and because it's a win-win. Those school districts can't afford to have one teacher for 2 students, so they would like to have them come here. And said, since there are smaller school districts around, that is something we could look at.
Any other questions? Is there consensus on to bring this back for action? Everybody good with that? All right, thank you, Danielle, appreciate it.
Thank
Recommended revisions to Board of Education policies, first reading. How many went through these changes? That's what I thought, and 99 times out of 100, I'd say you all spent your time wisely, but this one was a little interesting, wasn't it? just for what it is, they've changed or have changed the law on public FOIA access to us doing school board work. Say you're in a hotel room on a business meeting and you're on an iPad and you send out a couple of emails. In the old days, that was accessible through FOIA. That has been changed. That has been changed. So for guys like us that do that periodically, that was kind of interesting. So I actually didn't mind the policy differences, but okay, so consensus to bring those back. For the next meeting, I ran into Allison Liska the other day, and we enjoyed the string band for the Christmas meeting last year, and asked her if she would come back, and she said they would gladly do that. So I guess we're starting a little bit of a tradition at that last meeting prior to Christmas. We'll host a little open house, I'm sure cookies and lemonade type thing. If Cohen doesn't spike the punch bowl, we'll stay on schedule. But we'll have a recording. Yeah, sorry, I didn't think of that. It's not voidable now. But we'll have a little a reception prior to that meeting. Encourage you, if you have spouses or whatever, bring them in. We'd love to meet them. Those of you that may have staff members or others that would like to come ask questions or whatever, it's open to anyone and everyone. So please feel free to attend, and we'll look forward to seeing you at that meeting. But we will have the DeKalb High School string band, and they're just really cool. I didn't do the chart out there. So, well, it's scheduled for here right now, so we'll fit them in here somewhere. And then lastly, we have our DeKalb Sycamore home basketball game.
Yes.
First home game of the year, Friday night. And
Girls.
our new
Girls and boys.
yes, against Sycamore. We're looking forward to that game. Coach Biancolin is on a roll already.
Is it 5:30 for the girls?
Yeah.
So Friday night would be a good night to come out to the high school. It'll be a lot of fun, I'm sure. Other than that, do I have a motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor, say aye. All right, thank you all.